Our next speaker of the night is Professor Nicholas Grene to tell us about English.
When I was first invited to take part in this debate, I was quite clear I was going to turn it down. I'm not a debater. I thought back and I realized the last time I engaged in a public debate was 1963, which was rather before our current provost was born. That was when I was still at school. When I was here in college as a student, I hung out in players. You know, and looking round tonight, listening to that wonderful speech by my colleague Dr. Hayden, I realized why I should have continued to say no. But unfortunately, I thought to myself, I am a professor of English literature. I believe in this subject. So you should stand up and be counted. Stand up for your subject that you believe in. I may be a little bit rusty in debating after 48 years without no practice, but what I can do, I'll do my best. Thank you very much. On the face of it, I've got an uphill task, if only because English is such a newcomer to the academic disciplines. I was very relieved, in fact, to see Matthew Causey here from Drama and Theatre Studies, to realise that somebody even more recently joined the academic fold than us. But thinking about maths, languages, history, political science, they're all there practically from the beginning. The chair that I hold was established in 1867, and it was that was one of the oldest chairs in English literature in these islands, therefore actually in the world. So if you apply the industrial relations principle of last in, first out, it's me or Matthew. So why English? Why should we keep English in the Liferaft? Well, it's partly to do with what has happened since 1867. Since 1867, English has become not a world language, but the world language. Think about it. English is the language, the international language of science. 95% of all scientific papers by the end of the 20th century were written in English. Go anywhere you like in the world. Get into a taxi, get into a bus, listen to the music, the popular music. 3 chances out of 4, it's going to be in English. Look around at the advertisements, they're probably going to be in English. Even if it's in Hong Kong, they're probably going to be in English. It is the international language of shipping and aviation. Air traffic controllers the world around have to know English. Yes?
How many of those businessmen and actors and scientists do you think got their jobs from studying English?
That is a very good question, which I'm completely unable to answer. But what I'm trying to say is that this is the medium that works the world over. This is the medium that we have now as access for people across the world. I went to a conference on the English language in Évora, in Portugal, and there were many, many papers deploring the imperialism of English as a language worldwide. And I had to agree with them. But notice, every single one of those papers was actually given in English. I believe in language. I think that people should learn language. So I'm entirely with my colleague Dr. Smith there in believing in that. But if there's only going to be one, which should it be? The answer is clearly English, because that is the one that will reach most people, most different sorts of people. Now, I thought the question I was going to be faced with is, do you teach English language? No, the answer is we don't. We teach English literature. So what's to be said for teaching English literature? What we do, as distinct from teaching those businessmen and scientists that I was so rightly asked about there. Well, what do? We teach the greatest literature in the world. No question about it. I mean, you will expect me to roll out the usual roll call of the great canonical writers, Chaucer and Shakespeare, Spencer and Milton, Wordsworth and Keats, Austen and Woolf and Lawrence, etc., etc. They're all there, they're amazing. You should all read all of them. But think about again what's happened since the middle of the 19th century. Think about what's happened in our own country. Think about Joyce and Yeats, Beckett and Keeler, and the myriad of wonderful writers, many of whom are graduates of this college, who have made the English language, who have made English literature ours. As have writers from Africa, from India, from Australia, from Canada. This is the great world literature now, because writers from all over the world, if the British gave us nothing else, they gave us the English language. You remember the wonderful exchange in The Life of Brian? One of the two funniest films ever made, along with Some Like It Hot. Do you remember when the People's Liberation Movement of Palestine? I'll get the wrong one. They said, "What have the Romans ever done for us?" Roads. Education. Yeah. Well, what have the British ever done for us? They've given us the English language, and we have taken on board. We have made it. We have. The world writers have made it the great literature. So, that's why literature is so important. That's why English literature is so important. That doesn't explain why teachers of English literature are so important, and that's what we're here to debate tonight. It always seems to me there's a problem about being a professor of English literature. I mean, how am I different from other readers? All of you who no doubt read English literature and enjoy it. And that's a source of real anxiety to me. What do we do in an English department that's distinctive? Well, to start with, we do teach creative writing. We encourage, assist writers to develop their writing. Crucially, in this college, we have developed that area which was never taught in English departments in this country before. And we're very proud of the people we've produced as creative writers who've been through our programs. We teach above all, though, the interpretation of texts. Not only technical and formal interpretation of text. We can teach you the difference between a Petrarchan and Shakespearean sonnet, if you're interested. We can tell you how to discriminate between a reliable and an unreliable narrator in fiction. We can tell you how to spot a psychoanalytic critic or a post-structuralist critic at 40 paces, and that's very important because you want to be able to avoid them. But we do more than that. Our business is decoding texts, understanding how texts work. Technically, it's semiotics. We've actually borrowed from all kinds of other disciplines, and we're quite prepared to admit it. We've borrowed from hermeneutics. We've borrowed from philosophy, we've borrowed from sociology, we've borrowed from history. All of those things have made English a master discipline because we are able to interpret a range of texts, not just canonical literary texts, but texts, anything from a beer mat to, God help us all, a presidential toast. So why save English? We're going to need it to help to appreciate the rich body of literature. I'm assuming that this nuclear holocaust will have saved certain things, like libraries. Libraries still exist. We'll want to interpret that literature, which will be available to many different sorts of peoples. And I'm assuming also that it isn't actually just this little chamber that's going to survive. We'll need English to encourage writers to reimagine the new world in which we will find ourselves. Above all, though, we will need it to respond critically and skeptically to the language of the politicians and the scientists who've brought about the cosmic disaster. And try to see it doesn't happen again. Thank you very much.